Hey, gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Minnesota Vikings, folks. They're 7-6 now. They just shut out the Las Vegas Raiders. The caveat to that sentence is they only scored 3 points. Unfortunately, Justin Jefferson did get injured, and it was the low-scoring NFL game in the last 16 years. It's hard to really process this football game. What I will say is this: it was a victory. And thankfully for the Minnesota Vikings, they are in the NFC, and 7-6 at the time of this recording currently has you at least a game ahead of my Green Bay Packers right now. One thing I will state before we talk about this afternoon's game is we will know sooner rather than later, because first off, the season's coming to a close, but you have Cincinnati next weekend, then you have Detroit, you've got my Green Bay Packers, and then you've got Detroit on the road week 18. Win at all costs. That's pretty much the vibe of the Minnesota Vikings right now, is literally just win at all costs. Today, this afternoon, only 231 total yards. Josh Dobbs ended up getting benched for Nick Mullins. Justin Jefferson did end up getting injured, which really sucks, but we'll deal with the Justin Jefferson news as it comes out as the week progresses, but Nick Mullins did look solid. 9 of 13, 83 yards, game-winning drive, or the game-winning field goal setup. This was just such a funky game, and it was certainly the worst game of the NFL season this year. It might be one of the worst games of the last several seasons. Like we said, the lowest scoring game in the last 16 years in the National Football League. But we're going to talk about it in tonight's video. But before we do, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. I do post a bunch of Minnesota Vikings videos. So if we could try to get this video to at least 100 likes, that would mean the absolute world to me. I just know... even though I'm a Packers fan, I'm trying to picture this if this were to happen for the Packers. A win is a win. And I will preface this video with this statement. Most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, when your starting quarterback goes down, your starting quarterback especially, Kirk Cousins, phenomenal, underrated, great quarterback, great person. We all understand this. When your starting quarterback goes down, typically your team is going to suffer. They are going to struggle, and you are just going to try whatever you can do to make ends meet. Josh Dobbs came into Minnesota, won some football games, and really kind of put the NFL on notice, saying, like, look, man, I'm one of the best backup QBs in the National Football League. I'm a borderline starter like I was with Arizona before Murray came back, or also before I got traded. 10 of 23. For 63 yards, it was an absolute mess. And this is going against the Las Vegas Raiders. And folks, I covered the Las Vegas Raiders. Not a great defense, but I will say this: they are not a bad defense. In fact, statistically, they are an above average defense. But 3 points, not great. No touchdowns is never a great sign. Look, I don't know what the rest of this season holds for the Minnesota Vikings. I honestly just think, especially with that schedule, you've got 2 games against the Detroit Lions, and we said it on this channel before the season started. I thought the NFC North title would come down to, those last couple of games, Minnesota versus Detroit. That certainly isn't the case this season. Detroit this afternoon did lose to the Chicago Bears, so I will just say Detroit is... if we were to look at trends, they're more so trending downwards than they are upwards. That's just an unfortunate fact for my Detroit Lions fans who may be watching this video. I do like what Nick Mullins gave me, but like I said, man, Kirk is injured. Kirk's done for the season. A playoff appearance, especially after the way the season started, I think would be a massive success. To me, momentum is more important than, how the actual season goes, how some of these victories go. Like, if Minnesota makes the playoffs, or even if they don't make the playoffs, you'll go back and you'll look at this game and it literally will not matter. Now, if Kirk Cousins had played this football game and you had lost this game, we got a different conversation on the way, but Kirk's hurt. Justin Jefferson's hurt, and he got banged up once again today, and it absolutely sucks. But as far as I assume Mullins is going to be the quarterback for the rest of the season, the starting quarterback for the rest of the season. I don't feel great about it. However, I think he might be the better man for the job. It really sucks because I do think a dual threat quarterback for Minnesota is very beneficial, as we saw when Josh Dobbs first came onto the scene. But yeah, it's just weird, man. The good news is Alexander Madison, 10 carries, 66 yards. He averaged 6.6 yards per carry. The Minnesota Vikings, as a team, ran the ball 30 times for 132 yards, averaging 4.4 yards per carry. That is a good sign. That's good, especially for playoff football, especially for the last month of the season. It's actually kind of crazy that it's already December and that we have one more month of regular season football. This is when, like I said, man, this isn't college football. Wins, the context of these wins matters in the scheme of like, oh, is Minnesota going to win the Super Bowl? Well, I'm going to go with probably not. But it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of like, oh yeah, well, the NFL football playoff committee, might not let the Minnesota Vikings in because of this win. That's not the case. But as I was alluding to, momentum to me is very important. And Minnesota won 13 games last season. Unfortunately, the playoffs did not go as planned. I don't really know what the future of the Vikings is looking like. I will just say I really hope Kirk Cousins is back as a QB1 for this team next season, because I really think he's such an underappreciated quarterback. And I think that narrative changed this season. It's just a weird win. I will say, man, I don't care if you're playing the Raiders, 5-8 Raiders. I don't care if you're playing a backup quarterback. A shutout's impressive. And the defense, especially, that red zone turnover in the second half, the defense stepped up today when they needed to step up, and they stepped up the entire game. Ivan Pace Jr., this was a player a lot of Vikings fans actually put me onto once they picked him up this past offseason. We've been keeping a close eye on him. The dude was an absolute stud in college, and he picked up right where he left off. And today was no different. He had 13 total tackles. He had a sack. He had the game-winning interception. That dude's a future star, in my opinion. And you still have bodies. You still got some players on that defensive side that's going to keep you in these football games. It's just the context of this victory is really desperate, and I understand that, and I unfortunately don't really have any words to make that better, because it really was a desperate victory, but a victory nonetheless. And so we'll deal with this as it comes. And I will say, quarterbacks have bad weeks, offenses have bad weeks, teams have bad weeks, and anytime you have a bad week, especially with your quarterback, your starting quarterback, Josh Dobbs today, and you still come away with a victory, for me personally, that works. And at the end of the day, man, especially the 0-3 start, Minnesota 7-6, they're currently in the playoffs, and we'll just take it day by day. We'll take it week by week. So we'll post another Vikings video before the week is up. But if you guys enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button. Let me know what you're thinking about this afternoon's victory. Let me know what you guys are thinking about Minnesota for the rest of the season down below. But that's it from me. Peace.